The clamor in the West is growing to allow Ukraine to use Western arms as it deems fit. Our next report explains the ramification of Kyiv using the donated arms to strike Russian territory, despite allies being divided and the US opposing the move.
This is Ukraine's eastern front line. Ukraine's top military leaders openly admit that the battlefield situation on the eastern front has deteriorated. 2 years of war have sapped Ukraine's ammunition and manpower, while the country's failed counteroffensive last year sank morale.
Їдеш на позиції, коли ти знаєш, що
Now everything is so hard because the front line doesn't change and defense lines on both sides are being prepared. So much so that it's really hard to break through.
A new push by Moscow earlier this month near Kharkiv is likely to further divert precious ammunition and personnel from other sections of the front, stretching Kyiv's military thin at a critical moment in this war. Beyond the blazing battlefield, there is a renewed push for allowing Ukraine to strike deeper into Russia using Western weapons. French President Emmanuel Macron, standing beside German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, again stressed that Ukraine should be allowed to hit military sites inside Russia.
Donc nous, on reste exactement dans le même cadre.
So we're staying exactly within the same framework. We think that we should allow them to neutralize the military sites from which the missiles are fired, and basically the military sites from which Ukraine is attacked. But we must not allow them to hit other targets in Russia, obviously civilian capabilities or other military targets.
Civiles ou d'autres cibles militaires.
But the issue has divided Kyiv's allies. Germany has been reluctant to permit Ukraine to strike over the border, fearing it could lead to a direct conflict with nuclear-armed Moscow. US is also against it.
We're aware of the interest that President Zelensky has expressed in this regard. I would tell you that there's no change to our policy at this point. We don't encourage or enable the use of US-supplied weapons to strike inside Russia.
Russian President Vladimir Putin warned the West that NATO members in Europe were playing with fire and asserts that it could trigger a global conflict. Experts warn that there are chances of miscalculations and the risk of escalation, including the possibility of Russia retaliating against NATO members. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Lester Munson is a senior fellow, National Security Institute. He also serves as co-head of the international practice at BGR Group. He's now joining us live from Washington, D.C. Mr. Munson, welcome to the show. Why is the West changing the long-held policy of not allowing Ukraine to use its weapons to attack Russia?
It's a very good question. I think a big driving factor here is that the conflict has become a bit frozen and Ukraine has not been able to make great headway against Russian lines. Of course, there was a relative dearth of supplies coming into Ukraine for the past few months. That has now changed. The question is, how will Ukraine use what the West is providing in a way to prevail over Russia on the battlefield? I think we're not looking at a huge change from the West. There have been occasions where Ukraine has struck inside Russia in the past. Russia has adjusted accordingly, of course, and if its troops are and assets are more protected inside Russia, then it is going to try and strike from farther and farther away. So perhaps a little change here in allowing Ukraine to hit Russian assets inside Russia can help make a difference on the battlefield. That's the real driver.
Mr. Munson, very many people are waiting for the America's response to this. Do you think that President Biden will give the go-ahead to Kyiv?
I think there will be a go-ahead given to Kyiv by the Biden administration. I don't know how big that go-ahead will be. It may be very limited in what the U.S. will be okay with Ukraine doing, but I think we're going to see something. The Biden administration doesn't like to be provocative. The fact that the Europeans are out here first saying that this should happen gives the Biden administration a little bit of cover to not look like the provocateur. They are concerned, I would say a little too much. They are concerned with what Putin's reaction will be. And so this may give them the cover to be a little more lenient with the Ukrainians about what they do with American weapons.
Mr. Manson, President Vladimir Putin has warned the West of serious consequences if at all Ukraine goes ahead and uses Western-supplied weapons against Russia. How could Russia respond if this happens?
Well, you know, Russia has already done many things. It has launched cyber attacks against the United States and other NATO countries. It has been very provocative along certain NATO borders, including with the Baltic states. It has made any number of threats. At the end of the day, the only thing Russia and Putin really understand is the use of force. They are a bully. Sometimes you need to punch the bully in the nose. That is what Ukraine needs to do, and the West should be supporting that. I think a lot of this is bluster at the end of the day, and if the West responds forcefully to this war that was started by Russia, I think that'll have a salutary impact.
All right, I've been talking to a senior fellow at the National Security Institute and also the core head of the international practice at BGR Group, Mr. Lester Manson. Thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you very much.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.